ずに進んでゆくよ痛みも悲しみも味方に変えながら
So you want the Ubuntu support but Canonical is getting completely unreliable? Here's where System 76 comes into the play. A smaller team than Canonical maybe, but fully dedicated to the desktop, and they have some seriously good developers. In short, if you want GNOME and Ubuntu, Pop! OS is the way to go. But System 76 didn't make it on this top 5 because of Pop! OS. They made it because they are the biggest hardware manufacturer specialized completely on Linux desktop machines, and let's be honest, people don't and won't pay for an open source desktop. If you want profits to get bigger, to invest back, and to get improved, you need to sell hardware, probably some cloud services too, because this is how you create loyal users. And System 76 does exactly that. It won't be easy, but she is one of the most promising Linux companies, and they can hugely help GNOME in the short future. And if next year I do such a video, I believe they will score higher than 5th place. Oh, and if Ubuntu fails? No problem! They will just ship another Linux, simply because they do hardware.
生きることやめないことをあなたに今日誇れるように
To be honest, I didn't know Purism till they run Librem 5 crowdfunding campaign. 2 years later, I can tell Purism is the company that believes in GNOME more than anyone else, including GNOME Foundation itself. In the next few years they may completely change the future of GNOME, but in the present time they achieved something even more precious already. They brought excitement and motivation to people for starting to develop mobile apps with GTK. Before them, GNOME application development was clinically dead. Now, everyone gets crazy to write mobile-ready apps, for a phone that doesn't even exist yet. Speaking of which, it is normal to wonder why Librem 5 will succeed where Ubuntu Touch failed. It is simple really. Librem 5 is backed by GNOME community, so even if Purism for some reason quit it, the project will keep living, and I promise you it will remain super active no matter what. It is kinda unfair I'm placing Purism in 4th position, but that's only because they haven't fully rolled out yet. Next year I bet they will be either 2nd or even 1st.
つまずいてもいいはみ出してもいい君の音色を僕たちは待っている
I know, that sounds like a joke. I mean they're actually competing against GNOME, they don't contribute upstream, and in fact they don't even allow their users to contribute upstream since they are heavily based on Ubuntu LTS, without offering a more up-to-date alternative. And yet, they made it on the 3rd place. You see, from all companies on this list, Elementary is the only one that is really trying to push people to GTK development, and they do this with lots of success and consistency in all years of their existence. However, the future may not be so promising. Both Elementary and Linux Mint arised in a period that Ubuntu was screwing up desktop with Unity. Now Ubuntu is back to GNOME, and it is going to give Elementary a very hard competition to follow on the desktop level, while Librem 5 seems to getting the application's development interest.
People try to put us to down, talking about my generation, just because we get around, talking about my generation, things they do look awful.
In the last 7 years, Endless was probably the company that invested the more money in GNOME desktop, only that they throw everything in the garbage. They started as Endless Mobile, based on Android, then they became Endless OS and went with Linux and GNOME. Technically something like GNOME, because instead of working upstream and improved GNOME shell, they decided to fork it, and create a totally unusable desktop that nobody speaks or cares about. Then, they shipped a low-specs computer looking like an ostrich egg, that was 5 times the price of Raspberry Pi, and almost on same prices as Chromebooks, but without a screen, or a battery, or a keyboard and mouse. And all those targeting poor countries. Selling super expensive to super poor people. Sounds like a plan to me. And if you go on their website today, they don't sell to individuals anymore, because nobody buys. And the terrible ideas just don't have an end for this company. Their latest brilliant innovation, was to publish extremely low quality and proprietary games on Unity, for kids to learn open source programming. That happens when no geeks running a software company. And it is a shame because with their money they could make a difference. And someone should tell them, what the hell are you doing? But still, Endless is on second place, first because they contribute upstream a lot, and second and most importantly, because they are the first to put an OS3 system into production. However, Endless OS can't compete what is on first place, and I don't see Endless to remain on my top 5 list, or even remaining as a company at all.
二人で逃げ場所探して走った天気雨の中
That's the corporation that 1/3 of their profits comes from military and governmental agencies, the rest 1/3 comes from groups like Lockheed Martin, Deutsche Bank, ExxonMobil and others, and the remaining 1/3 just maybe comes from companies and people that don't want to actually harm humanity. When you work with, and you provide support to fascist groups, then there isn't any gray zone around, you are a fascist yourself. And Red Hat is one of the top fascist software companies, because the 70% of their activity goes directly on selling support to groups, that aren't just against democracy and freedom, but they are even responsible and directly involved to wars. And that's not even the worst of this corporation. When Google employees turned against to provide artificial intelligence to Department of Defense, in a 10 billion steal, Red Hatters speak for ethics and freedom, and they create open communities, when Red Hat is an ambassador of the exact opposite values. And regarding their work in Linux desktop, they don't do much better. Red Hat is simply one of those guys that take 10 from the community, and give 1 back, so they can take 10 more. Meaning, that for their size they don't contribute as much as they could, and should. However, they are on the very top of this list, first because you don't want to mess up with fascists, and second for their excellent work in Fedora Silverblue, that simply is the next level of Linux, and creates an opportunity to see GNOME and REST desktop projects, to getting seriously mainstream.
こんなはずじゃなかったハイスキーハイスクールデイ So many fantastic
So, we have a new Linux distribution from Intel. It defaults to GNOME, as most of distros these days anyway. It has FlatHub pre-installed, and it is damn good one, even if for now is missing community support. Intel once was very active in GNOME development, but then they stepped back, so it is kinda cool seeing them again around, and hopefully they will start contributing too, and so I may add them on my cute list in a couple of years. Now, I'm not saying that Red Hat is the devil and Intel is a saint, but what really bugs me with Red Hat is how they're promoting communities and social values, when in reality they aren't better than Apple. They are just smaller. Such companies are free to do what they do, but they should leave communities out, and stop pretending. Which bring us to the final chapter.
一部尖らせた私を見てどうしたのって聞いてくるの待ってみるのごまかした
In some extent, it is perfectly alright to have companies contributing code to you, but GNOME has completely gone to the other side. They probably are the single software organization worldwide that has 0 developers. In short, GNOME as a foundation has done 0 progress in the last 15 years. And when you're failing on that level, then naturally you will fail in software too. Oh, and Red Hat won't save you, neither Canonical will pay for GTK developers. It hasn't happened for 15 years, so why it will happen now? The thing is, that everyone sees GNOME as Linux, and nobody really cares for GNOME itself. Even users, they get GNOME just to get Linux. In a sense, you have done a significant work all these years, but in the end of the day, you remain insignificant. And my point is, that GNOME perhaps should first re-examine how it works as a foundation, and then get bothered with the software. Because if you miss the first, the second won't matter, and I believe they're totally missing the first. On the good side, GNOME does much better the last 2 years. They got some important donations. They finally got a GTK developer, which is not much, but better than none. And they also got more support from companies like Canonical, Purism, Endless and others. But most importantly, this year GNOME can be powered by OS Tree and Flatpak, that is a game changer, and you can get it, and you should get it, on Silverblue 31. And of course, GNOME remains a community, and eventually communities always prevail, so there is nothing to worry about the future.
And once you're gone